Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3832BN. Today's date is February 3rd, 2026, and the title of the episode is It's the Tyrants Against the People. Great Awakening was needed to take back the country. Now, the rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting, warning, or wishing. They are acting, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. While everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioning. The understanding that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit X22Gold.com and download your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. The rules are changing. Make sure you are ready. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see the strategy of Trump is for what? The midterms. Because he's showing the entire country who the tyrants are, what the criminal syndicate is, every step of the way. And that's the whole point of the Great Awakening. And yes, there were many different phases within the Great Awakening. It was in the very, very beginning stages when Trump was in office the first time. Then when Biden was put into place, he woke up America. People started to see what their true agenda really was. And now, what do people see? They're seeing the actual system that they created. You see, going back to Biden/Obama's time, you didn't see the system. You saw their agenda. You saw that they wanted to bring in illegals. You saw that they wanted to go woke. You saw that they were destroying the economy. You saw that they weren't helping the American people. And what are people seeing now? People are seeing what their system actually is. And that's the whole point of all this. Because what do you think Trump is doing this for? He's doing this to take back the country. He's doing this so we as a people come together during the midterms and we vote the patriots into office. Because again, yes, Trump has a plan, which I do believe he is. He's a builder. He builds things. He doesn't just say, hey, one day, you know what? I'm going to put up a building. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to, throw down some cement. I'm going to buy some steel girders and maybe some, copper piping and electric wiring. And we'll just put it up. We'll see what happens. No, he plans it out from the very, very beginning. I mean, look, he's building the ballroom that's going to attach to the White House. He made an entire plan. He made it look like it was part of the White House. It looks absolutely beautiful if you look at the picture. It looks like it's been there since the beginning of time. And all of this was done because he planned it out. He's a builder and he wanted to do it right. Just like the Kennedy Center. Yes, he could have, slapped some tape and some glue and, made it look kind of nice. But he said, something, if we're going to do this the right way, let's plan it all out. Let's shut it down and let's rebuild it the right way. And if we're going to do something in this country, we might as well do it the right way. So what did Trump do? He planned this out from the very, very beginning. How are we going to take back this country? How are we going to wake the people up? How are we going to convince them that we shouldn't be fighting each other, that we should be fighting the true enemy of this country? How are we going to do this? So we set in motion a plan to do this. We called it the Great Awakening. And everyone thought, it was just the Great Awakening in the very beginning. No, the Great Awakening has not ended. It's still waking people up. And I remember going back in time when I mentioned the Democrats. Remember, Democrats are still part of the United States, still part of this country. We're Americans here. And they needed to be woken up, just like a lot of the Republicans had to wake up, which they did during the Biden/Obama time. Some Democrats actually woke up during this period. Now, the Democrats, they are starting to wake up. They're starting to see the true enemy of this country. A lot of the Republicans, independents, they're starting to see the system that was created behind the scenes to keep their criminal operation going and keep us all in the dark. So now the people are seeing the tyrants. They're starting to see the foot soldiers of the tyrants. And every day that passes, it's becoming clearer and clearer, and people are seeing it. Now, every step of the way, the Great Awakening is continually happening because, again, Trump has structured this around the midterms. The midterms are very, very important. This is the next part of the plan because he can't finish it without taking control of the House and the Senate. The deep state players know this. I know I repeat this over and over and over, but this is how important it is because I'm going to tell you right now, if we the people don't come out and vote, if we the people don't go to the polls, if he doesn't wake up the entire country and people are afraid to go to the polls because of what's happening out on the streets, well, what do you think the controlled tyrannical House, the controlled tyrannical Senate is going to do? You think they're going to try to get rid of Trump? Of course they are. He told us this many, many times. And this is why he's structuring everything around the midterms. He wants everyone to say, let's use some common sense. Should the Democrats protect criminals? No, that's just common sense. Should the Democrats protect illegals? No, that is just common sense. Should we have a strong economy? And should we remove the income tax? Yes, that's just common sense. Should we use the tariff money to help the people of this country? Yes, we should. That's just common sense. So every step of the way, people are going to see common sense. Should we allow men who put on a wig to be in the girls' bathroom? No, we shouldn't. It's common sense. Should we allow men who put on a wig to be on women's sports? No, that is common sense. So this is what Trump has been doing. It's the Great Awakening. And a lot more people are waking up now. And it's getting worse and worse for the deep state players. This is how we're taking back the country. That's what this is all about. We need to take it back. And Trump wants to do this in a way where he and we, the people, have all the leverage. He wants the deep state players in the weakest possible position so they can't fight back. They don't have the funds. They don't have the ammunition. They're foot soldiers, Antifa, the illegals, the criminals. They're all rounded up. They're in prison or they're being deported. So they don't have that peace around the world. The funds are not going to Iran. Iran, basically, the people took back their country. Cuba, the people took back their country. Venezuela, the people took back their country. There's no more deep state layers where they use that for human trafficking, child trafficking, oil smuggling, drug smuggling, you name it. Terrorist, smuggling, all of it. Same thing with Ukraine. So think about what Trump is doing right now. He's making sure that these people can no longer do us harm. Because when we get to the second part of the plan, and it is a plan, what do you think is going to happen? Well, first of all, the House can make laws that go along with Trump's agenda. They can also codify all his executive orders. We can also then remove judges. We could also impeach Supreme Court justices. What do I mean by this? What about Ketanji Brown Jackson? She was put in place because of what? The auto pen. Can she be removed? Absolutely. By the way, she's the only Supreme Court justice that went to a Grammys award show that was completely political, one-sided, which pretty much goes against some of their rules in the Supreme Court. So basically, we could do quite a bit. Trump could even take this to the next level. If he's going to use the tariff system to fund the government, if he's going to use the tariff, energy, AI, gold card system to run the country and bring money in externally, do we need the central bank then? Do we need to borrow to keep everything operational? Because if he's shrinking the government, removing all these central bank agencies, because that's really what it is, they created all these agencies. Why? Because it makes it that much harder to get rid of the central bank system. Oh, wait, we have to fund all these agencies. Oh, wait, we have all of these programs. Oh, wait, we have to send the money to all these different countries. Well, the only way to do this is with the central bank. We have to borrow more and more and more and more. So how do you shut down the central bank? You can't. So what is Trump doing? He's removing all the agencies now. He removed USAID, which actually is shutting down a lot of the NGOs, shut down the smuggling in Venezuela. So now no money is going across the globe, shutting down the 14 computers, shrinking government by millions of people. So in the end, people can't make that argument. Oh, to keep this whole thing running, we need the Federal Reserve. Trump's going to say, we don't need the Federal Reserve to keep everything running. Because actually, if you look at it, we could do this now externally. We could use the entire parallel economic system that I created to actually fund everything. And in the end, this is what Trump is moving towards. And this is why he needs all the leverage. This is why he needs the power to create the laws that are needed. This is why we need the power to remove the corrupt. Remember, we don't have control of the judiciary. That is something that we need to take control over, because if you want justice, you need control over the judiciary. And this entire plan was meant to take back the country. And all these different pieces that you're seeing now, Epstein is a piece, the money laundering is a piece, the drug trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking is the piece, the open borders is a piece. It's all the piece to the puzzle of what makes up the entire criminal syndicate. And I think at this point in time, people are starting to realize who the tyrants truly are. The other piece of the puzzle is getting the people on board to vote for the SAVE Act, to say, we need that. Yes, I know the Senate has that in a committee and they won't release it, even though John Thune is saying, yeah, we're going to look at it. But again, why don't the deep state players, the Ds, the rhinos, why don't they want voter ID? Why don't they want paper ballots? Why don't they want one-day voting? That's how it used to be. Why don't they want that? Because they know that they'll never win another election. And if you notice, the people of this country, they're completely on the other side. So the tyrannical criminal syndicate doesn't want it. And the polls, even coming from CNN, the polls from CNN are showing that the people of this country want voter ID. Even the Democrats, I think it's 71% of the Democrats want voter ID. So the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents, the people of this country are completely and utterly against the tyrannical criminal syndicate. So the people are saying, we want this. We want it now. They don't want to do it. Ask yourself a simple question. Why? Because they'll never, ever win another election. They will lose their position. Even the rhinos, they will lose their position, and they know this. Why do you think McConnell, who can barely function right now, why do you think he's not voting on this? Why do you think he's holding it hostage? Because he knows. And those people above him, they know. Because once this occurs, once this happens, it's game over for all of them. Now think about it. Once the people put enough pressure on the rhinos, once enough evidence comes out that the deep state players overthrew the United States government, the tyrannical criminals overthrew the United States government, overthrew the duly elected president, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be so much pressure on them that they will have to pass the SAVE Act, which means the deep state players are screwed, which means what do you do to stop the elections? You just let them go and you just allow the elections to happen? Well, if that should occur, and we have the SAVE Act that's passed, which means you have to come in person, you have to show an ID, you have to use a paper ballot, you have to count the votes one day. No mail-ins whatsoever. No illegals whatsoever. Yes, some might slip through, but you're not going to have millions and millions and millions. Actually, a lot of the illegals will be afraid to even go to the poll centers because they're afraid that ICE might be around there waiting for them. So once this should occur, the deep state players are done. So how do you stop that? Well, either you have to just let it happen or you have to do something to scare the people. The deep state players always like to use some type of scare event to scare the people. How did they scare the people in 2020 to use mail-ins? You have to remember, they always use fear to force you into doing something. So if they're going to try to manipulate the elections, which they're the ones going to be manipulating it, not Trump. They'll try to blame it on Trump, but it's going to be them. How do you manipulate it? Do you have Antifa illegals, criminals on the streets scaring people not to go to the polls? That's one way. Can you have a cyber attack where you actually shut down the power in multiple cities to say we don't have power to run the elections? It's too scary. We don't have lights. We don't have the ability to do it. People are afraid. Yes, that's another way to do it. Trying to push us into war is another way to do it. Last time they used the pandemic, it was an invisible enemy. Will they try using an invisible enemy once again? Is a cyber attack, can you see a cyber attack? If they tell you a cyber attack is happening and lights shut down or communication shut down, how do you show that it's fake? How do you show that it's not happening? Because if they do it, the news is going to tell you, yeah, this is happening, just like with the pandemic. Oh, the virus is all over the place. I know you can't see it, but just believe us. It's the same type of strategy. And I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they have countermeasures to all of this. They already know they're planning on this. Now, I'm not saying the deep state players, they have the ability to do all this. They might. They've been talking about it for a very long time. They ran simulations on it, just like they ran simulations for the pandemic. So once again, they might be moving down this path. Will they try to release another pandemic? It's going to be a little bit more difficult because I don't think the people are going to buy into it this time around. So once again, I do believe they're going to I think they're going to change up strategy this time. And you have to remember, no matter what they pull out of their hat, it has to be fear to try to keep you away from voting and try to shift you into another way of doing it or not doing it at all. So let's see how this all plays out, because I do believe this is what they're going to try to do. But I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're actually kind of leading them down this path. Because once again, if Trump gets exactly what he wants and we have the SAVE Act and it's voter ID, one-day voting, and paper ballots, doesn't matter what they try to do, they're going to lose. And they will not be able to win this whatsoever, especially when Trump rounds up all the people. That clears the streets and people are no longer afraid to go to the voting area. Even if the power is out, are people going to be afraid? No, people have backup lights. They could use candles. They could still vote. You don't need the machines. You don't need any of that. So I do believe this has to be done next. And I think this is what Trump's entire plan is to basically put a lot of pressure on the rhinos, show the people the truth, produce the evidence, and force the rhinos into removing the filibuster and actually passing the SAVE Act so we can completely and utterly take back this country. And we'll have to see how this all plays out. And we'll be talking a little bit more about this a little bit later and what Rep. Luna is doing right now. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, they're really screwing themselves up right now. And during the Grammys, they really basically showed America who they truly are. And one of the things that came out was Billie Eilish, where she was letting everyone know that, the lands are stolen. So you can't be illegal on stolen lands. And basically I think it's a $14 million mansion. It is on the Tongva tribe land. And the Tongva tribe says Billie Eilish is living in a mansion built on ancestral land taken from them. And they would like that back. Actually, can she just hand over the entire mansion to them? Because once again, it is on their land. I mean, think about how crazy this is. And there are also now people trespassing onto her property. I hope she doesn't deport them off of her property. Because again, that's her home. People are illegally coming onto her property. And if she removes them, she's now doing exactly what ICE is doing now in the United States. Remember, this country is our home. When people come into this country, they're illegally coming onto our land, our home, and we are removing them. Yes, as soon as they come over, they break the law. Just like if you trespass onto someone's land, you just broke the law. The same thing when people come into this country illegally. So her entire narrative is completely and utterly falling apart. And like we said before, we have now seen, for the first time ever, a Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, basically went ahead and she showed up at the Grammys. And by the way, she was clapping and cheering for the Democratic side. And Brooke Gossett says, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson must recuse herself or risk further eroding public confidence in the court's independence and legitimacy. 28 U.S.C. Section 455 demands recusal whenever a justice's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. The Supreme Court's own 2023 Code of Conduct explicitly requires justices to avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety, including political activity that undermines public confidence in judicial independence. Now, again, this has never been used before. Now, yes, we had Supreme Court justices resign, but this, again, has never been used before. But again, I do believe she's going to be removed in the end. Why? Because, again, she was nominated using the auto pen. And I do believe once we get control of the House and Senate, it will be a lot easier just to remove her, impeach her, because she shouldn't be there in the first place. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that out in many of the D areas, we could see, especially Minneapolis and other places like Indiana, they are now pulling children out of school to protest against the United States government and the people of this country. Now, once again, teachers should not be teaching the children their own beliefs. They should not be teaching the children their religious beliefs. They should not be teaching the children their political beliefs. They should not be teaching children their gender beliefs. They should not be teaching the children any of this. They should be teaching the children how to read, how to add and subtract, how to do basic things, not teach them what they personally believe. And you could see out in Indiana, they basically gave the kids the day off, and basically they showed the children how to protest against ICE. Amuse put this out and said, the Democrats running government schools have organized an anti-ICE walkouts nationally. They can't teach the kids how to read and write, so they're teaching them to riot instead. And think about why these teachers are doing this, because you have to remember who installed these teachers. Who put them into these positions? It was the deep state players. They did it on purpose because they needed to brainwash the younger generation all the way from middle school all the way up through college. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And now we could see that people could see this very, very clearly. And people are using common sense once again, saying this shouldn't be allowed. And this is going to be stopped just like everything else. I think Trump is right. The money should follow the child. Let the parents decide. And in the very beginning, you know what's going to happen. Some of the parents are going to say, I'm going to keep my kids in these schools. I really love it. I love the gender studies. I love the LGBTQ flag. I love, the anti-ICE protests. I love that. And you know what's going to happen as time goes on? A lot of the parents are going to take their children out of those schools, bring them to other schools where they're actually learning something, where they hire the best teachers. The scores are going to be very, very high. Kids are going to be getting incredible jobs. And those parents who love that other stuff are going to look and go, ooh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Yeah, you know what? I made a big mistake. I'm going to start switching schools because I see what's happening right now. They're doing really, really well over there. This school is garbage. Might take a little while, but parents are going to recognize this and they're going to do it. And I do believe, just like with health insurance, I think the money should follow the child. So if schools would like to compete, let them compete, and let's see which schools win. Actually, we see it now in the country. All you got to do is look at the red state and blue states. The blue states decided to go down that path. Yeah, we're doing LGBTQ. Yeah, we're doing the Green New Scam. We're going woke. We're doing all these other things. Well, what do you think the businesses are doing? They're moving out of the states. I mean, look at New York, for example. Oh, yeah. We want all the Islams in here. Yeah, we're going to change everything. We're going to have Sharia law. Look at all the different states. Look at all the different cities. what do you see happening? You see people moving out of these states. You see people moving out of the blue states, the blue cities, and they're moving into the red areas. Same thing with companies. The same thing is going to happen in schools, same thing with health insurance, same thing with everything. That's how you create competition in this country. And when people see it, they realize what's going on. And when you look at Minnesota, you could see they have their checkpoints, like we mentioned yesterday. And there was a Minnesota resident, and Wall Street Apes put this out. They were trying to get they were trying to go to a new burger restaurant, and they were stopped, and they were checking their papers, their license plates, and they wouldn't let people to pass to go to the restaurant until they were checked out. Now, remember, the only reason this is being allowed is because the police aren't doing anything. Normally, do you think this would happen in a red state? Do you think if these people put up a checkpoint in a red state that this would be allowed? No, these people would be arrested in a split second. You're going to jail. You're basically stopping traffic. This is illegal. You're not allowed to do this. You're violating people's rights, number one, and no one gave you this authority. So the only reason this is happening out in Minnesota is because the police are allowing this. But it looks like now the police decided to remove one of the checkpoints. They worked with ICE to remove one of the checkpoints. Again, you can see that this was allowed to happen. The mayor did nothing. The governor did nothing. And this was allowed. It would never happen in a red state. And you know what's very interesting? All these individuals, especially at the Grammys and the D's and the fake news, saying that none of these individuals have a criminal record. Well, everyone that comes into this country has a criminal record. Cynical Publius explains, I'm so sick and tired of these propagandistic goons constantly claiming that illegal aliens have no criminal record, when each and every one of them is criminally in violation of 8 U.S.C. Section 1325. They came over the border illegally. And yes, every single one of them has a criminal record. Now, the other thing that we could see is a lot of those individuals that are in government, they work with the anti-ICE groups, especially out in North Carolina. Of course, we know Minnesota. Data Republican put this out and said, from bitchin' to soap, meet the people behind the anti-ICE group in North Carolina. Other people use OpenClaw to LARP on social media sites. We've been building COINTELPRO AGI the past week. This is not doxing. Nothing was illegally accessed to create this spreadsheet. This was compiled from public information and statements. By the way, the number 6 on the list, Andrew Willis Garces, is administrator of Siembra, North Carolina license plate doxing website. And when you start to look at this, you could see that these people, they're all involved. Cynical Publius put this out and said, in case you missed it, more stellar work from Data Republican. In the USA today, a large number of sitting elected officials have formally conspired with NGOs, political action committees, and individual useful idiot Democrats to prevent, hinder, and delay the execution of federal laws. Further, as we have all seen in innumerable videos, the conspiracy includes the use of violent force. I think everyone, even Democrats, must agree that what I just said is true. Now read 18 U.S.C. Section 2384, seditious conspiracy. If 2 or more persons in any state or territory or in any place. You know what's interesting? Our bodies are under attack, and not just from the air we breathe or the food we eat. We're being exposed to mRNA technology injected into food supplies, spreading through shedding, and now 5G radiation, saturating our environment with frequencies we still don't fully understand. These threats disrupt our biology at a cellular level, weakening immunity, inflaming our system, and damaging our gut, the control center of our health. That's why I take Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition. Each capsule is packed with over 900 strains of probiotics, live enzymes, and antioxidants to flush out toxins, rebuild gut balance, and fortify your immune system against the daily assault. A strong gut means better resistance, more energy, sharper focus, smoother digestion, and stronger protection from the inside out. Kimchi One is all natural, non-GMO, dairy-free, gluten-free, and 100% made in the USA by a company that truly cares about your health and freedom. If you want to defend your body naturally, this is where you start. Today, you can get 25% off your order by using code X22 at mybrightcore.com/X22. Or the best deal, call Brightcore at 888-959-5248. You'll get up to 50% off, free shipping, and even a free bottle of vitamin D3 with your order. The number again is 888-959-5248. Detox your body, rebuild your gut, and take your health into your own hands starting today. Or just click the link in the description. Subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Draw your own conclusions as to what is required here. So all these people, they have been involved in seditious conspiracy. USC section 18 USC section 2384. So when you look at the signal chat groups, when you look at all the encrypted groups and everything like that, they're all involved in this. And basically, when there's an insurrection, which I do believe there's going to be, all these people are going to be part of the insurrection. These people, plus Antifa, plus the illegals, plus the criminals, even mayors, even governors, even attorney generals, even secretary of states and those legislators, anyone that is involved in this will be rounded up in the end. And they will be prosecuted and they will be held accountable for all of this. Why? Because in the end, we, the people, are going to win the elections. We, the people, are going to impeach those justices that are completely and utterly corrupt. And we're going to put the justices in that are going to follow the rule of law. So in the end, yes, we will have accountability. But again, we all have to go down this path so we can actually experience it and see it. Most of the people in this country, they've been convinced that there's been no rigging of any election. Remember, in the very beginning, no one believed Trump when he said the elections were rigged. No one was really saying, hey, yeah, you know something? They overthrew the United States government. Now, people are questioning the elections. And as Trump provides the evidence, well, people experience it. Just like they'll experience that the people are fighting back against the exposure of the evidence. Because again, they're all implicated in all of this. So in the end, the people are going to see it. They're going to experience it firsthand. No one has to tell them. They will see it themselves, just like they're seeing the Epstein files right now. Yes, we're in the beginning stages of all this, but people are starting to see who the players are. And what's very interesting is that CBS News and BNO News is putting this out. CBS News is now cutting ties with the contributor Peter Ashia after the Epstein files reveal that they were friends. So basically, he was a contributor. He's a doctor, a prominent longevity physician. And after the Epstein documents revealed over 1,700 mentions of his name and emails showing a close friendship, well, the CBS decided, you know what? Yeah, we don't want you working for us right now. So we're going to let you go. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the Clintons, they weren't going to testify. They were trying to create the parameters in Congress where certain things would be off limits. And Comer said, yeah, we're not doing that. You know why? No one's above the law. Sharia Unfiltered says, the Clintons tried to narrow Epstein-related questions so tightly that Bill Clinton could avoid discussing Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, favor trading, media suppression. The Clintons tried to rewrite the rules. They also asked for a voluntary interview instead of a sworn testimony, withdrawal of the subpoena before testifying, a pause on contempt proceedings, a hard 4-hour time limit, 30-minute alternating question blocks, a personal transcriber of Clinton's choosing, no video recording, written statements for Hillary Clinton instead of appearing in person. Congress said, absolutely not. No Corvettes, no special rules, no special treatment, testify under oath. And that's what Comer said. This is what he put out. Once it became clear that the House of Representatives would hold them in contempt, the Clintons completely caved and will appear for transcribed filmed depositions this month. Former President Clinton will appear for a deposition on February 27, 2026, and former Secretary Clinton will appear for the deposition on February 26, 2026. After delaying and defying duly issued subpoenas for 6 months, the House Oversight Committee moved swiftly to initiate contempt of Congress proceedings in response to their noncompliance. We look forward to now questioning the Clintons as part of our investigation into the horrific crimes of Epstein and Maxwell to deliver a transparency and accountability for the American people and for survivors. Nobody is above the law, and that's absolutely true. Now, it's either they're not going to show up or maybe they start getting sick. Now, they can also show up and just plead the fifth and not say anything. I don't want to answer that question. I plead the fifth, which kind of means they're probably guilty, which we all know. But I just want to go back to post 2725, which is February 14th. Very interesting. Chatter, Bill and Hillary's public health would begin to rapidly deteriorate. Now, will they use this to get out of it? Maybe, maybe not. But they do have three options. Get sick, we can't appear. Number two, just skip it completely. Number three, show up, but plead the fifth all the way down the line. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Harvard tried to get around the anti-Semitism that they've been practicing in the college. And Trump, he is now suing Harvard. And basically, the New York Times came out with a fake story, and they tried to kind of get around all of this. And Trump called them out on this. And he put out a couple of truths. And this is what he said. Strongly anti-Semitic Harvard University has been feeding a lot of nonsense to the failing New York Times. Harvard has been for a long time behaving very badly. They wanted to do a convoluted job training concept, but it was turned down in that it was wholly inadequate and would not have been, in our opinion, successful. It was merely a way of Harvard getting out of a large cash settlement of more than $500 million, a number that should be much higher for a serious and heinous illegalities that they have committed. This should be a criminal, not civil event, and Harvard will have to live with the consequences of their wrongdoings. In any event, this case will continue until justice is served. Dr. Alan Garber, the president of Harvard, has done a terrible job of rectifying a very bad situation for his institution and, more importantly, America itself. He was hired after the anti-Semitism charges were brought. I wonder why. We're now seeking $1 billion in damages and want nothing further to do into the future with Harvard University. As the failing New York Times clearly stated, some connected to the university, however, think Harvard has no option but to eventually cut a deal. The administration has repeatedly attempted to cut off research grants, which would be an untenable crisis. Like many major research universities, Harvard relies on federal funding for its financial model. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. And then he said the following on Truth. He said, why hasn't the fake news New York Times adjusted its phony article on the corruption and anti-Semitism which has taken place at Harvard? They never call for facts or fact checks because the Times is corrupt, unprincipled, and pathetic vehicle of the left. They wrote only negatively about me in the last election, and I won in a landslide. To anyone who knows, they have zero credibility, a rag at the lowest level. I look forward to watching their rapidly failing circulation force them to finally close their doors. That would be great news for America. And then he says, the failing New York Times story was completely wrong concerning Harvard University. I hereby demand that the morons that run into the ground the Times change their story immediately. See Truth below. Also, just like they're incorrectly called by the Times election results, where they got it all wrong, my poll numbers are great. The New York Times coverage of me is so purposely wrong. We will soon see how I do in my lawsuit against these fraudsters. Fake news. Absolutely. And you can see every time the deep state players try to go up against Trump, you know what happens. They fail. And they're going to fail big time. Let's see how this all plays out. But you can see the deep state players, they are now attacking X. And basically they're pushing censorship to the extreme because I do believe they're planning on doing something and they want to control the narrative. They started this in January and now they're ramping it up. And it looks like Macron's authorities, they have raided Elon Musk's ex-French office in Paris. And they are now basically ordering summons, and they were issued against Musk and former ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino, calling them to Paris in April of 2026 to answer questions related to the probe. And basically, you could see what's happening right now. They're going after X because X is producing the truth. People are debunking everything, and Macron and the EU, they don't have the ability to control the narrative, which is a huge problem for them. So the question is, why are they pushing so hard right now? What's the purpose of all this? Unless they have something planned where they're looking to censor and black out everyone so they can control the narrative, which I do believe this is exactly what they're trying to do. But the House Judiciary, GOP, they put out a post on X, and it says the EU Censorship Files Part 2. For more than a year, the committee has been warning the European censorship laws threaten U.S. free speech online. Now we have proof. Big tech is censoring America's speech in the U.S., including true information to comply with Europe's far-reaching Digital Services Act. In February 2025, the committees subpoenaed big tech to understand how foreign censorship laws are hindering America's free speech rights. Thousands of internal big tech documents and communications with European regulators released today for the first time paint a clear picture. Europe has led a successful decade-long campaign to achieve global online narrative control. It began as early as 2015 when the EU Commission created codes and forms through which it would pressure platforms to censor speech more aggressively. These censorship codes and forms were supposed to be voluntary and operate on consensus, but they weren't, and they didn't. From the very beginning, the Commission used them to pressure platforms to censor political speech and other legal content. In private companies, state the obvious. The Commission sets the agenda, forces the consensus, and platforms don't really have a choice whether to comply. The Commission's target was clear: companies, community guidelines that set the boundaries for what can be discussed in the global town square. A key pressure point for governments to censor content at scale. Put simply, the boundaries of debate on political topics like mass migration, men and women's sports, and more are set by community guidelines. When government pressure platforms to change their community guidelines, they are changing what Americans are allowed to post in the United States or anywhere else. And they effectively must be global in scope. Country-by-country content moderation is a significant privacy threat, in addition to being ineffective and costly. The censorship campaign started long before the DSA, as early as 2020. Interesting. EU President von der Leyen and Vice President Vera Jourova told platform to change their rules and take down content questioning established narratives about the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccine. By 2022, the Commission had formalized its pressure campaign. In more than 90 meetings organized under the Disinformation Code between 2022 and 2024, the Commission pressured platforms to change their global content moderation rules and censor more content. And once the DSA was in effect, the Commission warned platforms that they had to undertake continuous review of community guidelines to comply. The pressure campaign worked. In 2024, TikTok changed the global community guidelines to comply with the Digital Services Act. TikTok now censors true information worldwide, as well as vague categories of First Amendment protected content like marginalizing speech. That's right. Because of Europe's censorship law, TikTok censors true information in the United States. It's no surprise that the Commission has specifically focused on censorship of U.S. content. During the pandemic, it pressured platforms to censor U.S. content about COVID-19 vaccine for kids. Later, ahead of the 2024 U.S. presidential election, Vice President Vera Jourova flew to California to meet the platforms about their censorship measures for U.S. political content. When asked whether Europeans were flying to California to discuss EU and U.S. elections or stay mostly EU-focused, the Europeans made clear EU and U.S. elections were to be on the agenda. So basically, they've been doing this for a very long time, and that has to do with pretty much everything. So now they're pushing Elon and his X platform, and what are they trying to do? They are trying to make him censor everything, which means it would affect things here in this country, which kind of sounds like a communication blackout. Now, if they can't get this done, what do you think they're going to do in the end? Do you think they're going to try to shut down certain things? And I don't mean go to every single social media platform. They don't have to do that. I think they've been testing the shutdown by going to centralized, maybe like Cloudflare or centralized cloud systems where it controls multiple social media platforms. Now, Rumble, Truth, and many platforms don't use the centralized systems that other social media platforms use. So once again, can they shut down everything? Most likely not. Will they try? I do believe so. Eva Vlaanderbroek said the following: "These files are a bombshell. Thanks to the Judiciary GOP, we now have proof that the EU has been actively censoring legal content that goes against their agenda, and that they interfered in at least 8 European elections, including the Dutch election of 2023 and 2025, by meeting with social media platforms to pressure them to censor political speech in the days before the vote. Leading up to the Dutch election of 2023, the EU Commission even made them, the Dutch Interior Ministry, a trusted flagger entitled to make priority censorship requests under the DSA. What kind of political speech did they want censored? Populist rhetoric, anti-government, anti-EU content, anti-elite content, political satire, anti-migrant and Islamophobic content, anti-refugee content, anti-immigrant sentiment, anti-LGBTQI content, meme subculture. In other words, anything that goes against their agenda, anything remotely right-wing or conservative, anything pertaining to the disastrous migrant situation we have here in Europe." And what are they doing right now? They're putting pressure on Elon to do this, which would affect the United States. Elon says tyrants love censorship. That's absolutely true. So once again, when this fails, what's next? Because there's a reason why they're doing all of this. I do believe when all this fails and they can't control the flow of information, they will shut down communications. At least they'll try. I do believe in the end, they will fail. And you can see that Australia and now Spain, what are they doing? They are now banning children under 16 from going on to social media. Now, people might say, oh, this is a good idea. Let's ban the 16-year-olds. Let's do this. And you could see the Spain's prime minister, he says, listen, if you try to get on social media, you're going to face criminal liability. What are they really doing right now? Well, if you want to get on, you have to show your ID. Think about it. You have to prove that you're not 16. So basically, they're making everyone present who they truly are, and you're handing over your information. They're collecting this information. Jack Terrier says, it's not about protecting the children. It's about kicking open the door to biometric verification under the cloak of age verification system, presently referred to as another layer of security. Britain and France are following right behind Spain. Australia is already there. So think about it. Everyone now has to show their ID. You need to get a biometric scan. So basically, they're using this as an illusion to think that, hey, they're protecting the children. That's not what they're doing. They're collecting your information. Now, if you want to get on the internet going forward, because this is what I believe they're going to try to do, they now know who you are. Every time you want to get on, your face has to be scanned. What happens if you say something that's inappropriate? Something against the EU, something against the government. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to shut you down. Click. You cannot go on the internet now. Start to put all this together. This is what they're trying to do out in Europe. And they want this to happen here in the United States. And by doing it out in Europe, they're hoping it flows to the United States. Now, when all of this fails and the people don't go along with this, well, this is going to be another problem. And remember, a lot of people, they basically go around all of this and they use VPNs or other networks. If they use Starlink, this is another layer where they can't enforce this. So this is going to be very, very difficult for them. So they're going to try pushing censorship, but I think in the end, it's all going to fail. And then they're going to take it to the next level, which is also going to fail. Now, when you start to look around the world, especially South America, you could see now that there are more right-wing leaders that are being elected. And right now, you could see Bolivia, Peru, El Salvador, Argentina, Chile. They're all right wing right now. And we have Venezuela, soon to be right. Colombia, soon to be right. Brazil, soon to be right. Soon, South America is going to fall in line, just like the rest of the world. Everything now is changing. And we can see it's happening very, very quickly. Right now, Trump, he is in talks with the leader of Cuba. The socialist regime in Cuba is now in high-level negotiations with President Trump. They saw what happened to Maduro, and they want no part of it. So that regime most likely is on its last legs right there. And I do believe we're going to see a change in there. And Trump actually confirms this on Truth. And he put this out and said, Trump confirms talks with Cuba. Hopefully, he will strike a deal. Now, we also see that Trump is in talks with Iran. And basically, Ryan Savendra put this out and said, the New York Times claims that Iran is willing to shut down or suspend its nuclear program to prevent a U.S. strike against the regime after it massacred tens of thousands of its own people. Now, once again, we know that Iran lies, and Steve Guest says for years Iran has lied about their nuclear program. We cannot trust Iran. But Trump, he is in negotiation with Iran, and Trump showed Iran that he's not fooling around. Remember, it's peace through strength. So what happened? Nick Sorter put this out and said, Karen Levitt has confirmed a U.S. F-35 shot down an Iranian drone which was aggressively approaching the USS Abraham Lincoln. CENTCOM made the decision to shoot down the drone at the direction of the president. This president always has a range of options, including military force. Iran knows that better than anyone. Look no further than Operation Midnight Hammer. So think about this for a second. Trump just showed Iran, listen, you want to play? Well, I'm not kidding around. I just shut down one of your drones. You want to make moves on the U.S.? Let's do it. Basically, he's using the strength. He's showing the strength, showing Iran, no, I'm not part of the deep state players. I'm not going to give you a pass. I'm going to come after you if you don't speak to me. And this is what he's doing there. Did it in Venezuela. He's going to do it in Cuba. He's doing it in Iran right now. And he just showed them, he just flexed his muscle to show them that he wasn't kidding around. Remember, these areas are deep state layers for the deep state. And the deep state is trying to fight back. They won't be able to. And basically, the people of Iran, they see that the U.S. is backing them up. Every step of the way, you could see that Iran is in a tough position. They're isolated. Trump, he put this out on Truth, and said, Trump weighs diplomacy with Iran amid rising tensions. And Trump is letting everyone know, yes, he is speaking to the leaders of Iran. I think their days are numbered. And I think soon you're going to see regime change in Iran, in Cuba, and other places. And you're going to see the people take back control of their country. And I don't mean a regime change like the deep state does it, where they go in and they destroy the entire country, kill everyone in sight, put in a puppet government, and then basically any person that tries to remove the puppet government, they kill. It's almost like what happened here in the United States. The United States was overthrown by the deep state players. They put in a puppet government, and anyone that just talked about it, decided to go up against them, they arrested them. They threw them in jail to protect the puppet government. So it's the same exact thing. There's no difference whatsoever. Now, the other thing that we see, since Trump shut down the flow of money, and he's no longer giving to the WHO or the UN or any of these other places, and they're not getting the money from USAID and the NGOs and all the oil trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and everything like that, you could see that the different institutions around the globe, they're having a little bit of trouble staying operational. The United Nations right now is facing an imminent financial collapse as member states refuse to cough up billions of dollars in mandatory contributions. The financial woes were laid out in an emergency letter from the Secretary General and sent to all 193 members countries. The Secretary General said the organization's financial crisis is worsening rapidly, threatening the delivery of core programs and potentially leaving the UN bankrupt by July. He urged member states to either pay what they owe in full or agree to sweeping changes to the UN's financial rules to avoid collapse. The Trump administration has repeatedly criticized the UN for wasting taxpayer dollars, appeasing criminal regimes, and infringing on the sovereignty of the U.S. and other member nations. And basically, you could see that right now, the U.S. isn't paying, and the member states are not paying. Maybe we should just let the UN collapse. Trump is creating the Board of Peace because the UN really doesn't do much except work for the deep state players. So you have to remember, the United States is the UN's largest contributor, and the U.S. has refused to fund the organization's regular and peacekeeping budgets and has withdrawn from multiple UN agencies. This should tell you everything you need to know. Trump now is shutting down the entire deep state system, the globalist system, the one world government. It's all being shut down right in front of their eyes. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is that the FBI, they raided an illegal biolab inside a private home in Las Vegas. And what they found were thousands of vials and links to CCP-connected California labs, which is very, very interesting. So they came in and they basically saw that they had a lot of stuff in there. And it's linked to California. Representative Kevin Kiley put this out and said, an illegal biolab was just raided in Vegas. It is directly linked to the secret Chinese lab found in California in 2023, which was oozing with E. coli, HIV, malaria. Congress must pass our bill to find these illegal labs and shut them all down. Clandestine says, so it turns out the mysterious biolab just raided in Vegas is linked to the secret Chinese lab in California back in 2022. The lab in Vegas was operated by the same LLC, same Chinese nationals as the one in California. The secret labs are not an isolated incident. No, they are not. They're all connected. They all want another pandemic. And this is what they've been using them for. And now they're all being shut down, just like the biolabs were shut down in Ukraine. Can they push another pandemic? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Are they going to try to change things up and try to push something else that's invisible? Most likely like a cyber attack, I do believe. Because, again, if there is a cyber attack, it's invisible. If they shut off the lights and shut down communications in a blue city, can they make people believe there's a cyber attack? Absolutely. Can they shut down the financial institutions and say, oh, look, the financial institutions are being cyber attacked? Can they do that? Will people believe it if it's on the fake news? Yeah, people will go along with it. They did this with the pandemic. Did you ever see the virus? No, you didn't. All they did was put numbers on the screen. All they did was tell you everyone was sick. Actually, did anyone ever question why we didn't see the homeless all dead in the streets? I mean, they have compromised immune systems. Why aren't they all dead on the streets? Why weren't there flatbed trucks going around picking up all the dead people in all the different cities? Think about that for a second. So once again, will they try to use an invisible enemy? Like a cyber attack? Maybe. Let's see how this all plays out. Because again, what is Trump producing right now? He's producing the evidence on how they overthrew the United States government. And he's using it to force the SAVE Act. So every step of the way, we could see that Trump is putting a lot of pressure on these people. And actually, with the release of Epstein files, that is putting a lot of pressure on these people. Liz Churchill put this out and said, President Trump referred to Maine's governor, Janet Mills, as he or him at least 6 times during a phone call. Very interesting. Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, who supports making transgender children, was in the Epstein files for child abuse and cocaine trafficking. Ooh, that's not good. And the other thing that just came out is that, and Stacey Robinson put this out, a jury has awarded Fox Varian a total of $2 million after it found her psychologist and surgeon liable for medical malpractice related to a mastectomy at age 16. And this is going to be the first of many, many lawsuits. Again, if you go back to the time of Nazi Germany where they were experimenting on people, operating on people, it seems like they were doing the same thing right now. Same people doing the same thing. Let's experiment. Let's remove the skin from their arm. Let's create things. Let's remove body parts. Let's give them drugs. It seems like they were doing the same exact thing. Elon Musk says there'll be thousands of court cases of children who are mutilated by evil doctors, modern-day Mengele, the school's psychologists, psychiatrists, and state officials who facilitated this will pay dearly too. Absolutely. They're all going to pay. Since you have this one lawsuit, there's going to be thousands of them. And all of these people are going to be held accountable one way or another. Now, the other thing that's really strange is that Jill Biden's ex-husband was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife. 64-year-old Linda Stevenson, wife of Jill Biden's ex-husband, Bill Stevenson, was found unresponsive after police arrived in the Newcastle, Delaware residence late Sunday night. So that is very, very interesting. She was found dead in her living room. So I wonder what happened there. And isn't it amazing that it's always around the same criminals? They're always related to the same people, and you always find out these strange type of crimes. It's almost like when Nancy Pelosi's husband had that individual in his house and he was in his underwear. We always have these strange occurrences happen because you know why? They're all criminals. Let's just admit it. They're all criminals. They do criminal activity. That's why we keep seeing it. Now, the other thing that we could say, and here's another criminal who's a Democrat, Wall Street Apes put this out. Before Democrat Representative Presley was sworn into Congress, her husband quit a $92,000 job to start a consulting firm. Net worth with assets skyrocketing to $8 million. Every time you see a politician with a consulting firm, it's taxpayer money laundering. And when you look at this, this is how the D's run their scam. And I'm not saying the rhinos don't do this either. They use their spouses. They create businesses, they create foundations, and everything flows through their spouses. So this way, when you get the tax returns from the government official, a representative, a senator, or anyone, their tax returns always look good. When you look at the businesses or the foundations of the spouse or the NGOs of the spouse, that's where all the money laundering happens. So when you look at Congress, don't look at the individual, look at their spouses. We've been told about this a long time ago. And we could see that the deep state players, what they're doing right now, they have this huge network across the country. They communicate through the Signal secret chat, and they coordinate their actions through the entire country. Basically, Antifa is not a grassroots operation. It is controlled. They are organized. And you know what? Renee Good, and Andy knows put this out, was a member of the Signal secret chat network that is organizing the insurgency in Minneapolis. So once again, she was part of it. And also, Alex Preddy was also part of it. So that should tell you everything you need to know right there. And look what Adam Schiff did. And again, you can see these people are liars, they're cheats, they're criminals. Homeland Security put out a post on X, and let me read the whole post so you understand what it says. Want affordable housing? Help report illegal aliens in your area. And they give a phone number. If you are an illegal alien, you can take control of your departure using dhs.gov/CBP home. That's what the full message says. Adam Schiff decided to erase all of that and then take a picture of it and put this out. And first he put this on it. Turn in your neighbors and life will be better for you. Logic circa 1930s Germany, now DHS policy. So they erased everything else on the Homeland Security message and just says, want affordable housing? Help report illegal aliens in your area. That is it. So basically, he's lying once again. Tricia McLaughlin says, wow, a sitting U.S. senator manipulated and erased half of DHS's Gov tweet. Why does Adam Schiff want to hide from the public that DHS is offering those in the country illegally $2,600 and a free flight home to self-deport? Very, very interesting. Remember when Adam Schiff read the transcript of Trump's phone call and it wasn't the transcript? He pretty much created his own transcript and lied to the American people. Once again, he's a liar. And you can see that these same people They're telling the people on the street, they're giving them the signal of what to do. Representative Jerry Nadler, who lives at TikTok, put this out, basically just put out a kill order for ICE agents, effectively giving the go-ahead for leftists to shoot them. He said, listen, if someone in a mask comes up to you, you're going to be scared. You don't know who this person is. So you should have every right to shoot them. He basically just told all of these people, go ahead, start shooting these people. But again, this is not going to work out for them because Kristi Noem, like we said yesterday, countered their entire mission. What did she do? She has now ordered all the agents to have body cams. So this way, when they try to create a story, it's going to completely and utterly fail. Let's see how this all plays out. I don't think it's going to work out too well for them. Just like when all these judges, and remember the judiciary is completely and utterly corrupt, when they try to stop Trump, you know in the end, it fails. They're not trying to stop him. They know they can't. They're trying to delay him long enough until we get to the midterms. And they keep trying. It doesn't matter what the Supreme Court rules. They keep going against all of this. Lives at TikTok once again says, federal judge Reyes, who was born in Uruguay and was appointed by Biden, just halted Trump's plan to end temporary protection status for 300,000 Haitians. Tricia McLaughlin says, Supreme Court, here we come. This is lawless activism that will be vindicated on. Haiti's TPS was granted following an earthquake that took place over 15 years ago. It was never intended to be a de facto amnesty program. Yet, that's how previous administrations have used it. For decades, temporary means temporary, and the final word will not be from an activist judge legislating from the bench. So the question is, did the Supreme Court rule on this already? Yeah, the Supreme Court ruled in October 2025 that President Trump has the authority to end temporary protective status, allowing termination for 350,000 Venezuelans and reinforcing executive powers over immigration. Similar rulings apply to other groups, though specific cases like Haitians may face ongoing challenges. So if they ruled for Venezuelans and other groups, of course, this also applies to Haitians. Now, of course, they know they're not going to win the case. They know that this is going to delay everything, and that's what they want because, again, they're trying to delay this as best they possibly can as we approach the midterms because the midterms are very, very important. And they know that they can't allow Trump and MAGA and the country to win. Remember, it's the country against the tyrants. That's really what we're looking at. And this is why they want to keep the criminals in this country because they're going to use the criminals to do what? To create chaos in all the different cities. And you can see only 2% of the people commit 90% of the crime. So think about that for a second. That's absolutely unbelievable. Peter Sayong, PhD, said, Tennessee reports 21,648 crimes committed by illegals. Multiply by at least 3 for crime clearance, then extrapolate nationwide, and it comes to at least 3 million crimes per year by people who shouldn't even be here. Once again, this is what Trump is cleaning up, and this is what the deep state players want to keep in this country, because once again, we know that they're going to use these people for chaos later on, because again, they don't want people going to the polls. Because if Trump gets his way, which I do believe he probably will, because of what he's doing here, once the SAVE Act is passed, the only alternative for the deep state players is to keep people away from the voting polls and maybe have a cyber attack to shut down power. But we'll have to see how this all plays out, because Trump, if they do riot around the poll centers, the military will just round them up. So they'll lose all those people. All they'll have left is shut down financial institutions and power in certain select cities. And I don't believe they're going to be out that long. So I think their entire plan is not going to work the way they think it's going to work. And you can see that Trump now, he is continually going after Thomas Massie, because Thomas Massie continually votes against everything that Trump wants to do. And this is what he put out on Truth. People are saying that Thomas Massie became a liberal because his new wife, blessed be their marriage, is supposedly a radical left flamethrower. This new union all went so fast that maybe he didn't know what he was getting into, but nevertheless, he is an absolutely terrible and unreliable Republican. perhaps a rhino, or maybe even worse. Ed Galrain, a farmer and a war hero, is running against Massey. He is a high-quality individual, and there is no candidate for Congress that could be better. He's running because he realizes Thomas Massey has been totally disloyal to the President of the United States and the Republican Party. He never votes for us. He always goes with the Democrats. Thomas Massey is a complete and total disaster. We must make sure he loses big. Absolutely. And you can see Schumer, he's letting everyone know that we must keep the illegals in this country and we must make them citizens. Mary Nafal put this out and said, it's coming from Chuck Schumer, the only way to have a great future in America is to welcome and embrace immigrants. Our ultimate goal, citizenship for 11 million or however many undocumented there are. Let me translate this for you. The only way the Democrats can stay in power is to make all the illegals that we brought into this country illegally citizens so they can vote for us. If we do not have them, we will lose the elections. That's pretty much what he's saying. Because again, anyone that wants to come into this country, it's very easy. Go to the port of entry. Be vetted. It's that simple. But again, he's part of the criminal syndicate. And the people are not with him. Sean Davis put this out and said, new polling shows midterm election voters overwhelmingly support mass deportation of illegal immigrants and oppose Democrat efforts to defund or abolish ICE. Deporting illegals support 61%. Using ICE to deport illegals, 54%. Well, it seems that everything that he did not work. Even shutting the government down did not work. Shutting down the government to defund ICE, 58% oppose that. Well, it looks like nobody's on his side. And Speaker Mike Johnson, and Nick sort of put this out, shoots down the Schumer-Jeffries plan to weaken ICE. No amnesty. We are not lightening federal immigration law. Almost 80 million Americans voted for mass deportation, and that's what we demand. Tell Jeffries to go screw himself. Absolutely. And once again, you can see that the government's not going to stay shut down. First of all, they just voted on it. No, the SAVE Act was not included in that, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. But you could see every step of the way, you could see that Harmeet Dillon, she's been cleaning up the entire election system. Because Trump knows that he has to do this in stages. Again, I do believe it was planned out. And everything's planned for the midterms. So he had to clean up the voter rolls, get rid of the Social Security numbers, deport as many illegals as possible, have the Supreme Court rule on one-day voting, where you can't bring in mail-in ballots afterwards. And he needed then to introduce the SAVE Act and have the SAVE Act passed. Now, if he can't get the SAVE Act, all the other things will help us win the elections. But he'd rather have the SAVE Act. But look what Harmeet Dillon has done so far. Storm Azarai put this out and said, they are doing a mass cleanup of the voter rolls. 14 states are complying voluntarily. They are suing the states that are not complying in the next couple of weeks. 24 states plus D.C. in current litigation because they're making all kinds of excuses. Gee, I wonder why these states won't share their voter rolls. Because it's all fraud. The jig is up. Harmeet went on to specifically discuss the FBI raid in Georgia. We're going to figure out the logistics there with the court and with our colleagues and see what those ballots show. I think it was highly unusual. A lot of things that happened in 2020 in the swing states, we're going to see what we see and whatever the evidence shows. I think it's important for Americans, the people of America, to know what happened in the Fulton County and in Georgia. So basically, they're going to expose all of this. And this is why they attacked Tulsi Gabbard, because she was on the ground there. She's going to link this to foreign governments. She's going to link it to the people in this country. And they were pushing back very, very hard. And they came out with this ridiculous article. And what we've come to find out is that there is absolutely no proof, no nothing. It is a nothing burger. These are not credible people whatsoever. That is what we have learned. And Hans, he said, what a spectacular own goal by the Wall Street Journal stenographers who wrote this hit piece on Tulsi Gabbard. They actually compare their supposed scoop to a John le Carré novel, apparently oblivious to the fact that in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the plot revolves around a fabricated source feeding supposedly ultra-sensitive information that sends everyone chasing a lie. So yes, exactly like le Carré novel, By the way, the fraudulent Steele dossier followed the same Lakari blueprint. Absolutely. And now it's completely and utterly fall apart. DNI Tulsi Gabbard responds to all this and says the following. Contrary to the blatantly false and slanderous accusations being made against me by my members of Congress and their friends in the propaganda media, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has and will continue to take action under my statutory authorities to secure our nation and ensure the integrity of our elections. Absolutely. And you could see right now, John Solomon, he is covering the FBI raid on the election center in Fulton County, Georgia. And these are some of the key points. Stormer Zarai put this out and said, over 700 boxes of ballots seized. The search warrant cites a law that prohibits fraud from election workers. The warrant cited the Title 52 of the U.S. Code that knowingly and willfully defrauds the residents of a state of a fair and impartial election process. In other words, the focus of this investigation, the focus of that raid, the reason that the federal judge approved that raid was that they're looking at possible crimes related by election workers and the administration of that election in 2020. So basically, yes, you need assistance to pull off a rigged election. So people had to commit crimes. They had to assist in the cheating. And we're going to find out that's what this is all about. Liz Harrington put this out and said, Fulton County is suddenly worried about chain of custody when there is zero chain of custody for all its 350,000 early votes in 2020 where the machine's seals were broken. Results were printed out on different machines and not signed or sworn to. They are terrified. Absolutely. They're absolutely terrified. And when you start to look at the maps and you start to look at the states that have no IDs, that's where the D's win. Christian Collins put this out and said, why are Democrats against the SAVE Act? Because Kamala Harris only won states that don't require the voter ID. It's clear Democrats oppose voter ID because they want to cheat in our elections. And that's absolutely true. And when you look at it, you could see it's, some of the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maryland, Virginia. Then on the West Coast, you have California, Washington, Oregon. And they just have the two states in the middle, and the rest is red. And you can see that all those states have no photo ID. No ID. So once again, if the SAVE Act is passed, which that's the direction we're heading in, they're screwed. And when you look at a poll from CNN, Trump has the people. Eric Doherty put this out. In a stunning blow to Democrats, 76% of black Americans want nationwide voter ID. In other words, the Save America Act. Remember when they told us that it would be Jim Crow? The black people wouldn't be able to vote. They don't know how to use an ID. Basically, they're calling the black population stupid. That's ridiculous. 76% of the black population wants ID. 85% of white voters and 82% of Latino voters. And this is coming from CNN. Think about that for a second. And think about this. And Geiger Capital put this out. CNN also says 95% of the Republicans want voter ID, and Democrats, they're now on board. 71% want voter ID. That's very interesting. So let's see. The people all want this, but the rhinos and the D's don't. So let's see. It's the criminals against the people of this country. And Trump now, by producing all the evidence, by producing this information, it is now bringing the country together. The people are using common sense now. Do you think these percentage numbers are going to go way, way up when it shows that the Fulton election in Georgia was rigged and Trump actually won? Well, then you're going to have to look at every other state, don't you? Because again, if it happened there, it must have happened other places. Representative Anna Paulina Luna put this out and said, just left the White House. POTUS wants the Save America Act passed. Voter ID is number one. Today, Schumer said he wants mass amnesty for all illegals and to immediately stop all ICE efforts. After speaking with many senators as well as directly with POTUS, the pathway forward is through the standing filibuster. This would effectively keep the government open while allowing Republican senators to break through the zombie filibuster and put the Save America Act up for a vote on the Senate floor. The standing filibuster is not common parliamentary procedure, but it is one of the only mechanisms available to go around senators who want to block voter ID. Leader Toon says, we are very pleased that you discussed the standing filibuster, and we believe you will go down in history if this is pulled off as one of the best leaders the Senate has ever had. Voter ID is a must, and the ball is now in your court. So once again, you could see that Thune has a lot of pressure on him. And everything that Trump has been doing revolves around the midterms. That's part of the plan. And he's strategically setting it up for the midterms because he knows that the deep state players cheat. He knows that if they can't cheat, then they're going to go down the path he wants. And he knows if we don't win the midterms, what happens? The entire plan that he set forth goes down the tubes. They will impeach him. He's let the American people know this. So everything that you're witnessing, everything that you're seeing revolves around the midterms. The insurrection, the SAVE Act. I do believe this might be even a cyber attack. It all revolves around this one election here. Because if the D's win, we're screwed. If we win, it's game over completely for them and we take back the country. So think about this for a second. Do you think Trump is doing everything in his power to make sure that we win? Absolutely. And step by step, level by level, he's making sure if this doesn't work, we have this. If that doesn't work, we have this. But if we can get the SAVE Act, we are set. And this is why he is now going to produce the election rigging evidence to force the criminals to pass it because the people are going to demand it. Remember, that's how you make a counterinsurgency. You have the people demand it. And now the people are seeing that the country wants voter ID. The criminals are seeing that the people want voter ID. And it looks like Trump, he was able to open up the government once again. The U.S. House has just passed a key procedural vote to reopen the federal government. It's razor-thin margin, but most likely the government will be reopened today, 2/17 of 2015. Now, again, the SAVE Act was not included in the government funding bill that advanced. And basically, this is going to have to be brought up later. But again, you have to remember, Trump's plan is to put a lot of pressure on the deep state players. He just wants the government back open. And I do believe at this point in time, this is not the time. Let the evidence pile up. Let the pressure be felt by the criminals. Let the people force it. And eventually what we're going to have the SAVE Act. And I do believe Trump, we the people, we're going to win and we're going to take back this country. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to be bumpy because, you know, the deep state players are going to fight back with everything they have because they know it's all or nothing. And if we get the SAVE Act, they know they're screwed. So the only choice they have is to try to keep people away from the voting centers. The only choice they have is to try to shut down the elections any way they possibly can. They don't want to look like it's them shutting it down. So either, number one, they'll try to force Trump into using the Insurrection Act. If that doesn't work, they'll probably resort to some type of cyber attack to say we can't hold elections in some of the blue cities right now because people are afraid to go to the voting polls. Let's see how this all plays out. But I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're preparing for this playbook. They know exactly what the deep state players are planning for. Actually, I think Trump is leading them down this path because once people see it, once people experience it, they'll know for sure who's on the side of America and who's on the side of the tyrants. And once the people know this, there's no way to convince them otherwise. And that means we, the people, win and we take back the country. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.